Hey there, welcome to the Flute 360 podcast. I'm Dr. Heidi K. Begay, and I'm a flutist, educator, coach, and podcaster. My God-given mission is to serve you. I am passionate about guiding you, the modern-day flutist, to discover your unique voice on and off the stage. The goal of this podcast is to help you thrive both as an artist and as a musicpreneur. Go ahead and grab some espresso, your favorite notepad, and let's get to it. Today's episode 188 is titled An Interview with Julia Mermelstein. Hey there, thank you so much for checking out this episode. I hope that Series 40 has brought you many gold nuggets that you can start implementing within your music business or your artistic world today. I want to give you 2 upcoming events so that way you can jot it down in your calendar. I would love to see you at these opening and closing gala events being hosted by the SBO and Flute 360. The first event is scheduled for Thursday, February 3rd, 2022 at 7 p.m. Central Time. This is a great time to network with like-minded musicians from across the globe. You will get to meet the performers, the organizers, and the collaborators through this international festival. Please go down to the show notes, and I have provided a registration link so that way you can register for this opening gala. FYI, only 100 people can attend. So if you go ahead and grab your seat now, then you will be sure to be allowed into the opening gala on February 3rd, 2022. The second event is scheduled for Monday, February 28th at 7 p.m. Central Time. This is the closing gala where we get to thank our collaborators, our sponsors, our directors, and performers. Just like the opening gala, the closing gala has a registration link provided below. Go to the show notes below and check out this link, sign up, so that way you ensure that you reserve your seat for this special event. I hope that you get to make new music friends that will last a very long time. I will see you soon. Thanks. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another Flute 360 podcast episode. We are stoked that you are here today with us. So this series going down in January 2022 is a special treat for me for many reasons. One, I get to highlight my new music friends and their wonderful careers. And also, I get to highlight a co-hosted flute festival. This flute festival is being co-hosted by many different organizations, but dominantly Ron Royer, who's the director of the Scarborough Philharmonic Orchestra, is hosting this event with Flute 360. So if you want to see beautiful and hear beautiful compositions written by women composers and listen to your flute friends playing on an international stage, please join us. The festival is going down in February 2022 through the Scarborough Philharmonic Orchestra's YouTube channel. So I'm going to provide that link in the show notes below. And the other reason why this series is a special treat for me is because I get to make new music friends and I get to highlight their wonderful careers. So without further ado, help me welcome Julia to the show. Welcome, Julia. Thank you for being here, and I cannot wait to pick your brain.
Thanks, Heidi. It's so great to be here and to be a guest on your podcast. So just a little intro. I'm a composer based in Toronto, Ontario, in Canada. And I specialize in chamber music mixed with electronics, interdisciplinary collaborations, orchestral music, and I'm also a graphic designer.
Very cool. Yeah, you wear a lot of different hats.
Yeah.
Now, is Canada your home? Are you from Canada?
Yeah, I am. I'm originally from Halifax on the East Coast,
Mm.
but both my parents are American, so I also have dual citizenship. So I've spent
Oh,
a lot of time in the States too.
oh, nice.
Yeah.
How is the East Coast different than Toronto, in your opinion?
It's a lot more laid back. Time
Mm.
is slower, I find over there. Toronto is a huge city. So yeah, it's there's that big difference between being in a smaller town versus big metropolitan
Mm.
city.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you mentioned that you are a composer, a musician, and a graphic designer. So my first question is, I know each commission and each piece is going to be a little bit different through your approach, but in general, what is your compositional process like?
Yeah, it like you said, it kind of depends on each commission, but I usually like to start off from a kind of non-musical concept or inspiration. So it could be like a painting or a more abstract concept like memory. And I really like to research, okay, what are behind these concepts and kind of deconstruct my thinking behind those concepts and then kind of map out what do I want to say musically about these things? And how does that influence the musical gestures that I create, the way ensembles are working together to create kind of this sound world? And I really like drawing inspiration from these non-musical concepts to kind of drive like new musical thinking
Mm,
for myself. It kind of brings me outside of my own habits.
mm, I love that. Very neat. So you mentioned memory. Now, do you compose based off of your own memory or the memory of others?
Ooh, I think it's mainly composing off of my own memory. I feel like we draw from so many different experiences, whether it's conscious or not.
Hmm.
And we're kind of like sponges,
Yeah.
soaking up so much different kinds of information, and you never really know what really sticks with you over time. So
Hmm.
I'm kind of interested in drawing on those kinds of dynamics of what do we ultimately connect with long term. And
Hmm.
yeah.
Yeah. No, I love that. What do we connect with long term? Like, do you find that it's relationships? Do you find that it's like tapping into, I don't know, one of the five senses? I'm kind of curious just because I know that that is a huge question. There's a lot of meat
Yeah.
behind that. But as you're kind of pulling in these different memories, like, is there a common theme? Like, do you find, yeah, like what I said earlier, do you find that you are recollecting on family memories or experiences with other loved ones?
Mm. I kind of think of it more from a sensory experience, thinking about place, thinking
Huh.
about what is home, and tapping into what was it like experiencing, say, like the ocean. Like I still have a really strong connection to Halifax, which is on the Atlantic Ocean. And so tapping into what is my memory about the ocean and being on those beaches that I remember. I really like exposing that kind of sense of place in
Hmm.
music. And I think that can be a really strong connection, especially in incorporating like field recordings and electronics of
Oh,
really evoking a particular place.
huh. I
Yeah.
love that. So when you said the coast and the sea, it reminds me of Debussy, how
Mm,
he wanted to be a sailor and he had a strong connection with the ocean.
yeah, yeah.
Did you want to be a sailor?
No,
No.
I'm not really big on boats, to be
Okay.
honest.
That's fair. I need to take Dramamine before I get on a boat. My stomach is a little queasy
Yeah,
on boats,
yeah,
but anyways. So you are affiliated through the ACWC, correct?
yeah. Yeah.
So, what is your association like with this group and how did it get started?
Yeah, so I was helping out with their journal that they do. So I was their journal editor for a little bit, and also on their board. And starting now in January, I will be the next chair. So I'll be taking over from Carol Ann Weaver. She's the current chair right now. Just a little bit of background about the organization. We advocate for and support women and women identified composers
Mm.
to be more programmed and um, recognized for their important contributions to Canadian music.
Mm.
Um, and it was originally founded in 1981 by Carolyn Lomax with Toronto composers Anne Southam, Mary Gardner, and Maggie Burston. And they really saw the lack of Canadian women being programmed
Mm.
across Canada.
Mm.
And they were also seeing that they weren't very well connected with each other either. Like there was kind of a lack of support and network for each other.
Mm.
And so they wanted to kind of fill in these gaps that they were seeing and kind of advocate for more women composers being programmed and recognized.
Oh, how wonderful.
Mhm.
Yeah, and especially if you are minority and you recognize there is a lot of minorities out there, it is a huge initiative to say, okay, I'm going to collect everyone, put them together so that way they can meet and support each other. Because
Exactly.
if we are sitting on the shoulders of giants and if we can elevate each other, how much better rather than feeling extremely alone, perhaps.
Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely.
Yeah.
Definitely.
You can move mountains together as a group as opposed
Yeah,
to one person here, one person there. It is possible, but it is a lot easier and more welcoming to have more like-minded people together.
definitely. And when I joined, like it totally opened my eyes to different creators within Canada that I wasn't familiar with their music before. And it was a very eye-opening experience to join ACWC and see all the amazing work that people are doing that really deserve a lot of attention.
Yes. And kudos to you with your newly appointed chair.
Thank you. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
really exciting.
Will that start within the beginning of the new year in 2022?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
Exactly. Yeah.
Great. So you're
Yeah.
gonna have your hands full.
Definitely. Yeah. Yeah.
No, that's wonderful. So kind of circling back to what you were saying about, your compositional process, is there a specific piece within your portfolio that really highlights that memory aspect? The more I think of it, I was thinking, oh, is there an exact composition that you would like to highlight based on our prior conversation?
There's kind of a mix of two. They're very recent actually because I've been dealing with this concept of memory in a couple of pieces. One of them is an orchestra piece that got commissioned last year by Esprit Orchestra. They're based here in Toronto. And that one explores the abstract concept of memory and dealing with the dynamics and behaviors of memory. So it's not pinpointing specific experiences or specific like musical quotations, but it's more dealing with this like broader bird's eye view of maybe how we experienced memory over a really long period of time.
Hmm.
And so it's really influencing how I shape the form of the piece, influencing how like some musical gestures are very vivid, others start blurring into one another, become hazy. How do certain gestures transform over time? Do they stay the same? Do they gradually become more and more farther from the original statement? Just thinking about a
Huh.
lot of those types of abstract behaviors of memory. in an
Hmm.
orchestral setting.
I love that. So, excuse me in advance for not knowing, the string world as well, but I would imagine a lot of use or a lot of open strings being used to portray that abstractness. Is that kind
Mm.
of correct?
Yeah, I was also using like the strings in particular, like doing a lot of like glissandos,
Okay.
a lot of harmonic,
Mm,
sustained like high pitches,
mm,
getting really clear tones, but then also acting as a kind of like blurring mechanism with the winds, kind of blurring, making the sound not muddy, but more hard to tell what exactly you're hearing.
mm.
Yeah.
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 So extended techniques and
Mhm.
harmonics. I love it.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's interesting how you said bird's eye view because as I was preparing for our talk, I checked out your piece Sunder
Mm.
since this is a flute podcast and it is arranged or it is composed for flute, piano, and electronics. And one of the descriptive adjectives that I wrote down was openness. And it
Mm.
almost felt like time stood still, but
Mm.
there was movement, but it was this idea of just what you had said with this specific orchestral piece, this bird's eye view. And I felt this sense of vastness.
Mm.
So that's just my interpretation, but I kind of wanted to piggyback off of that idea of openness because I heard that same element within Sunder.
Yeah, that piece I was really wanting to explore extended resonances of the instrument
Mm,
to create a space where the electronics can artificially extend the flute and especially the piano's sound, because the piano sound definitely has a very specific cutoff
mm,
with the way that it can resonate over time, and I wanted the electronics to really open up that space. So
mm,
like what you were saying about creating this vast space, I definitely wanted to do that artificially
mm.
and take that to a next level where you literally hear the sound from the instruments disintegrate, and
Oh,
it starts to disintegrate into silence.
nothing.
So
Yeah.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
I love that. And kind of highlighting this piece a little bit more, I love it how it was commissioned by Amanda Lowry. She was one
Yeah.
of the commissioners. And the reason why I highlight this is because she is also a special guest through this series. So I love when things connect, on multiple different levels. What was the commissioning process like? When was it premiered? Let's talk a little bit more about Sunder.
Sure. So it was commissioned. I believe we started talking about the piece in like late 2017. So it was commissioned by Amanda as well as Jason White, who is the piano player. And it was actually for Amanda's graduating recital at Wilfrid Laurier in Waterloo, Ontario. And so that was a part of several other commissions that she was doing of women composers, actually, to highlight at her graduation recital. So that's kind of how that piece came about. And it was amazing collaborating with her. She is such a fantastic musician, willing to do anything of composer's dream. So,
Nice.
yeah.
Fantastic. So, if there is a composer or a flutist listening to this specific talk, what advice would you give them when it comes to collaborating with other musicians through specifically a commission? The do's, the don'ts, any piece of advice that you would like to offer?
I think I think the main thing to think about is it is a collaboration.
Mm,
So you are working with someone else. I mean, so that kind of takes the forefront of everything that you do. You have to keep in mind who is it that I'm writing for? They're actual people. They're not this abstract thing. they're they're living playing musicians,
mm,
and you really have to keep in mind like what do they like? What do they like to play?
Hmm.
What's their regular repertoire? Can you push that further? Are they willing to experiment? You kind of
Hmm.
have to think through these different things of what are the strengths and weaknesses for both of you as collaborators, and what can each of you bring to the piece that's different. um, so that's kind of the main thing that I would say is important to think about for commissions.
Mm, very
Yeah.
well said. So the nuggets that I'm pulling out of that is number one, listen. In order to, say something through our instruments or say something through the written piece, we have to listen to each other from performer to composer and then thinking about their strengths and weaknesses. I hadn't thought about that. And that is very intriguing, knowing what they're willing, and where they're willing to go with you. So correct me if I'm wrong, but I kind of hear like there are some parameters to the creative process, right?
Yeah.
But then at the same time, like, how can we push the envelope?
Hmm. Yeah, definitely.
Okay.
Like the way I think of it is, especially with creating more experimental music, new music, not everyone is comfortable, for example, with extended techniques. Not everyone is wanting to improvise and play. Not everyone's comfortable with that. So it's a matter of gauging, okay, what are your collaborators wanting to do? What can you do to kind of show them a new perspective
Hmm.
with new music that's not making them extremely uncomfortable? I feel like that's just something really important to keep in mind.
Cool. But at the same time, I totally agree with what you're saying, but then kind of pushing this idea of comfort.
Yeah,
You don't want to make them uncomfortable. You want them
yeah.
to be able to play and practice the piece.
Hmm.
But also, is there a sense of like trying to find a little bit of uncomfortableness within the piece and the performance too? Because sometimes that's where the magic happens.
Oh, definitely,
Okay.
definitely. It's the balance for sure, and that's the trickiest part, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Story of my life. There's so many parallels between what I do as a performer and my podcasting world. So every time I get behind the microphone, I can prepare. I can think of questions in advance. I can prepare my guests. But once you're in the moment, you really don't know how it's going to unfold. You and
Yeah.
I just met. I don't know your energy and your personality, which thank goodness you are lovely. You are making this so easy for me and our synergy is there. And so talking with you is super comfortable. But everybody has a unique personality and unique characteristics, and matching that, and finding the flow, and new topics will come up. And yeah, I can stay within my neat bubble and my comfort bubble of let me stick to the script.
Mm.
But if I do that, then I may lose out on possible magical moments within that dialogue.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So I'm just kind of circling it around and bringing everything together in my mind and sharing that nugget if anybody wants to. And I think that's good. You don't have to be a podcaster to understand that, but just like, life, taking risks every day, even if it's
Hmm.
reaching out to somebody whom you are admiring from afar. Because if we kind of stick with the 5 people we know, that's beautiful. But if you bring in the 6th or the 10th person, how can that, mix things up and what new opportunities could unfold?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's always more exciting, and you learn something different when you experience something new. Like
Yeah.
it's the learning process that really like stays with you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I couldn't agree more. So, do you teach do you teach composition or your main instrument in addition to all of the other hats that you wear?
I don't.
Okay.
I used to actually teach piano, a bit of guitar, and kind of beginner composition. I was working with a lot of like young students few adult students. But I kind of transitioned out of that into the whole design world, just out of necessity
Mm.
in a way, because teaching, you build up a studio in a certain place. It takes a while to build up a lot of students and clients, and um, I ended up moving, and so
Mm.
it was kind of rough to build that up again. And my partner is a web developer, and there was an opportunity. Hey, why don't you try out this design thing? We need a designer for this project. Like, why don't you try it out? And I was like, okay, this is very different, but I'll go for it. And I've loved it ever since. So,
Oh, wonderful.
yeah.
I'm glad you brought up the graphic design part of your life and your world. Did your compositional experiences and your background aid your graphic design and, within that art?
Yeah, definitely. Like one of the reasons he reached out about it is because he would see some of my scores and see that I was creating my own symbols, my
Hmm.
own notation for representing the electronics in my pieces. And so all of that is design.
Okay.
All of the score formatting, like setting the typefaces, choosing the right fonts, choosing the right language of what you're communicating to musicians, that's all design
Mm.
in a sense.
Hmm.
So I was already doing it, but just from a very different perspective.
Sure. Yes, I love it. So I'm curious, is there something about graphic design that has taught you then as the composer? Like you have two worlds, right? So you being a composer, it has aided your graphic design, the
Mhm.
form, the everything you just said. But then vice versa. Then you being a graphic designer, have you learned anything from this world that has aided your compositional career?
Definitely. I'd say thinking more outside of yourself in a sense, because when you're designing something, you have to put yourself in the other person's shoes. How are they interacting with this app? How are they interacting with this website? So you're kind of thinking about very much like a beginner's mind. How are they approaching these things? And I feel like that's really helped me step outside of myself to think more about the listener. What is the listener experiencing who maybe doesn't have any experience in
Mm,
hearing contemporary music, or thinking about the range of different people who might be experiencing your music in the audience. So just
mhm.
being a bit more aware of those perspectives has been really helpful.
Ooh, I love that. Yes, so much gold right there. You can see I'm processing it all, but it's true. And just all of these different perspectives,
Yeah.
right? And it boils down to that human experience. Going back to music, like you're a human, you're a living composer, writing music for a human, the
Yep.
performer, for then the listener, the human to take in that music. And you can't do it without one of those pieces.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah.
Hmm. I love it. Do you have any upcoming works or concerts or recitals that you would like to share with the listener?
Sure. I recently was commissioned by the Toronto Symphony Orchestra to write a miniature piece, a part of their 100th season celebration this year, and also tying into next year because of COVID.
Mhm.
But I'm writing a piece for them that will be performed in May 2022.
Congratulations.
Yeah.
I
Thank
cannot wait
you.
to check it out.
Mhm.
Can you provide, is there going to be some sort of link or some sort of landing page that the listeners can go to?
Yeah, I can. It's all on my website, so I can provide a link to my website.
Awesome.
Yeah, it's just juliamermelstein.com.
Perfect. And speaking of your website, is there any other social media platform in which people can connect to you?
Yeah, I'm on YouTube, SoundCloud, Instagram,
Hmm.
Twitter. It's just my full name as my handle. So,
Yeah. I will say that your website is easily accessible. Like, I had a really easy time to navigate it, checking out your composer portfolio and listening to sound bits through SoundCloud
Mm.
and things like that. So, thank you for that because that takes time. And that was a huge feat for you to conquer.
Oh, thank you. I
Yeah.
actually redesigned the whole thing myself. So that was bringing in my new design skills there too, of rethinking just the whole user interaction with music websites. 'Cause
Mm.
there's definitely a lot to improve
Yeah, well, it
in
takes
that
time.
world. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, but that takes
Yeah.
time, and especially with the huge portfolio that you have in displaying all of your compositions, I'm sure that was yeah, that was a project.
Yeah. Yeah.
This has been a wonderful conversation, Julia. Thank you so much for letting me pick your brain and talking about your amazing career and your compositional process. And yes, if you are the listener, please check out the link that she just mentioned about the upcoming event. And please also check out the SBO's February 2022 Flute Festival through their YouTube channel. Thank you so much, Julia, for being here today. And I'm so glad that we were able to meet.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Heidi. This was really fun.
Hey, Flute 360er. Thank you so much for tuning into the Flute 360 podcast. Please go ahead and follow me through the different social media platforms. This way, you don't miss out on any podcast news and or updates. My social media handle is at Heidi K. Begay via Instagram, LinkedIn, Twitter, and Facebook. I cannot wait to start a new conversation with you today. Lastly, Flute 360 has a YouTube channel. Go to YouTube and check out Heidi K. Begay's YouTube channel. This way, you can see myself and my guests in action. Take care. Let's talk about flute. Hey there. Welcome to the Flute 360 podcast. I'm Dr. Heidi K. Begay, and I'm a flutist, educator, coach, and podcaster. My God-given mission is to serve you. I am passionate about guiding you, the modern-day flutist, to discover your unique voice on and off the stage. The goal of this podcast is to help you thrive both as an artist and as a musicpreneur. Go ahead and grab some espresso, your favorite notepad, and let's get to it. Today's episode is episode 189, an interview with Dr. Cleo Palacio Quinton. Hey there. Welcome to the Flute 360 podcast. I'm Dr. Heidi K. Begay, and I'm a flutist, educator, coach, and podcaster. My God-given mission is to serve you. I am passionate about guiding you, the modern-day flutist, to discover your unique voice on and off the stage. The goal of this podcast is to help you thrive both as an artist and as a musicpreneur. Go ahead and grab some espresso, your favorite notepad, and let's get to it. Today's episode 190 is titled An Interview with Dr. Laurel Swindon. Today's episode 190 is titled An Interview with Dr. Laurel Swindon.